Okay, the last thing we're going to take a look at this week is part 2 of the survival guide. Okay, again, survival guide, just kind of general things that we're going to be using all year, like distributive property, like terms, coefficient, just some words that are going to come up a lot that are usually things you would have learned maybe in 7th or 8th grade. All right, the first thing we're going to look at here is number line. Okay, so on a number line, you've got 2 directions, right? Which way do the positive numbers go? Which way? Yeah, let me try to learn some names. Cadence?
To the right.
To the right. So positive numbers go to the right, negative numbers go to the left. Now, you've got some blanks under here, some lines. We're going to write some stuff in. If you compare a number over here to a number over here, these numbers are what compared to those numbers? I'm thinking of like one word. Lily?
Positive.
They're positive, but how about to compare them to the negatives? Positive ones are greater. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, or bigger. So, 2 things. If a number is to the left of another number on a number line, that means it's smaller. Okay, that means it's smaller. Most people, they get a little confused with the negatives sometimes. So you compare like -10 and -5. And you're like, well, which one is smaller? Well, -10. -10 is smaller than -5 because if you look at it on a number line, it's to the left. Here's -10. Here's -5. -10 is to the left. It's smaller. Okay, the further to the left you go, the smaller the number gets. Or you could also say the more negative the number is getting. More and more and more negative. Now, just the opposite if you go to the right. If a number is to the right of another number, then it's larger. All right? So if you compare 8 and 3, well, 8 is to the right. So 8 is larger than 3. Okay, a little easier with positive numbers. It's just sometimes the negatives throw people off a little bit. Okay, but you go number to the left, smaller. Number to the right of another number, bigger, larger. I think someone else said greater than. That's also perfect. I mean, you can say that. Yep.
Wouldn't it also be another way to find it by how close it is to 0? Like if it's on the left, it's farther away from 0.
So if you think of 0 as kind of the center point, and I said to you, well, tell me a number that's 3 units away from 0. What's a number that's 3 units away from 0? Yeah?
Couldn't it be 3 or -3?
Right, you have 2 choices. So not only do we have to know how far away it is from 0, but you have to know on which side of 0. Does that make sense? Like if you said to me, oh, I have a number that's 4 units away from 0, and I have a number that's 5 units away from 0. Which one's bigger? I can't tell you. It depends which one. Are we dealing with positives? If you're just dealing with positives, then I can tell you the one that's 5 units away from 0 is bigger than the one that's 4 units away. But if you throw negatives in there, that can kind of complicate things a little bit. Let's look at some examples of just comparing numbers. Now, I think last time we might have gone over these symbols. We might not have, but what does that symbol, let me make it a little bigger. That symbol that I just circled, what does that say? Yeah?
Greater than.
Greater than. And how about this one? Yeah, Patriot? Less than? Less than, okay? So let's compare -5 to -2. You're going to fill in one of those symbols right there. Is -5 greater than -2 or smaller? And if you get stuck, think of it like this on the number line. Here's -5. Here's -2. And remember what we said. -5 is to the left of -2. So if a number is to the left, it's what?
Less than.
It's less than, right? -5 is less than -2, right? Again, -5 is to the left, so that makes it a smaller number. Okay? Yeah.
Can you go to the bathroom?
Yep. Do you remember how to sign out? Yep. Scan your ID and then just scan where you're going. All right. How about this one? 4.5 compared to -6. Is 4.5 greater than -6 or less than -6? Adriana? Yes, greater than. Okay. In fact, anytime you compare a positive number to a negative number, the positive number is always what? It's always greater. Positive number is always greater than a negative number. Okay, a little tricky. -5.3 and -5.4. Okay, those numbers are really close. So sometimes what I do is I just kind of think of a number line. Right? -1, -2, -3, -4. Here's -5. And let's just put -6 right there. What do we think? -5.3 and -5.4. Yeah.
I think -5.3 would be greater than?
Yep, exactly. Greater than. Okay, I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit, but this is what it would look like. -5.3 would be like right there. -5.4 would be right there. It's a -5.4 is a little bit closer to -6. We're moving towards -6. So this was -5.4. That one was -5.3. -5.3 is to the right. It is greater. Okay? So it gets a little tricky when they get close, but
What period are we in?
what's that?
What period?
What period are we in? Right now, this is period 3, ending in 2 minutes. Okay, is there any question on that?
No.
Not too bad. Now, this is something that I think Cadence kind of mentioned about numbers distance from 0. And you guys already have this written. Okay? Numbers are opposites if they are the same distance from 0 on a number line. Now, I think it was Olivia, I said to you, I'm thinking in my head a number that's 3 units away from 0. And she said, well, it could be 2 things. It could be 3 or -3. They're both 3 units away from 0, and they are called opposites. Okay? So if you have a number and you want to make it the opposite, we just put a little dash in front of it. Okay? Now, when you write a dash on paper, it might look like a subtraction sign. But on a calculator, you have to be careful because a subtraction sign and a dash are actually 2 different things. Let me show you the subtraction sign first. 6 minus 4. That's what the subtraction sign looks like on this calculator.
Fancy calculator.
Now, if I do a negative, -2. See the negative symbol? The negative symbol is smaller than the dash. It's not like you have to make it smaller on paper. It's just, that's how the calculator shows you they're different, right? And then if I did -5, you get something like that. All right. So when you use my calculators, you won't use a graphing one, but it's the same idea. It has a negative button, which is to make a number negative or the opposite, and then it has a subtraction button. If you try to use the subtraction button as a negative, watch what happens. Let me try to do like a -6. So the calculator is looking at that and it's saying, okay, you want to do subtraction, but I didn't put a number there to subtract. -6 from what? What are we putting in? And the calculator says error, because you put in the wrong symbol. Okay? Could you shut my door for me? Yep, you check back in.
That works.
All right, so example 2, you don't have the numbers written down. We're going to copy those down. Okay, the first one, example A, it says -1/2. Or another way to read it is the opposite of -1/2.
Whoa. That's sick.
Sorry. What's the opposite of negative 1/2? Who thinks say no? James? A half. Nice job. 1/2. Okay. How about the opposite of 0? This one's a little weird. Opposite of 0. Yep, Patriot.
0.
It's still 0. 0 is the only number that, if you make it negative, it doesn't change. Now, this one's a little different. Okay, this involves a little bit of PEMDAS. So, with PEMDAS, what does the P stand for in PEMDAS? Parentheses. So, what's in the parentheses?
Numbers. Oh, 7.8 minus 33.2.
Yep.
33.2.
There's numbers and an operation. What's the operation again, Blake?
Subtraction.
Subtraction. Okay, so let's subtract 7.8 minus 3.2. I get 4.6. Now, did I do anything with the negative on the outside yet?
Nope.
No, just leave it.
Oh my god.
Negative. And then what did we get when we subtracted?
4.6.
4.6, thank you. So I'm just going to put it up here because I ran out of space. If you want to pronounce that, that's the opposite of 4.6.
What?
So what's the opposite of 4.6?
Negative 4.6.
Negative 4.6. Now, would you be wrong if you left the answer with the parentheses on a test? No, I wouldn't mark it wrong. All right, but the simpler way to write it is just what I circled. Just negative 4.6. Questions on that one? Yeah, what's up, James?
Did you multiply with negative?
You mean do like a distributive property?
Yeah.
Yes, you could. You could do a distributive property. That makes it, it's another way to do it, a little bit more advanced. I just tried to keep it simple. But whenever you have a negative on the outside of parentheses, what number are you really distributing? Like if it had this, negative 2 times 5 minus 8, I'd say, oh, I'm distributing a negative 2. But what if it's just a negative? You're really distributing a number. Negative 1. Yep.
I didn't know you could distribute that.
Yep. So anytime you see a negative on the outside without a number, it's really a negative 1. And yes, you could distribute it first if you wanted. Okay? I think the PEMDAS, just subtraction, is a little easier. But if you wanted to distribute, you could. All right, so quick rules for adding and subtracting. This is where I usually see a lot of people make a mistake on a test, like they do all the algebra stuff right, and then they just mess up like negative 5 plus negative 6. They'll do something like 1, and that's like, oh, no, that'd be 6 minus 5. Like they just mess up the signs. So I'm going to try to give you a strategy for doing that. If you've got a way that you add positive and negatives, and it works for you, I would just do whatever works for you. Okay, but if you kind of get messed up a little bit, maybe this will help. So, let's say you have to add and subtract numbers with the same sign. Okay, same sign. That means maybe you're adding a positive to a positive. Positive, positive. Or maybe subtracting a negative and a negative. Okay, same sign. You combine the numbers and keep the sign the same. Or combine the numbers and keep the sign that you had originally in your answer. Okay, and we'll do an example in a little bit. So an example of that might be 3 plus 6. Positive and a positive. Negative 2 plus negative 5. That's same sign. A negative plus a negative. Okay. When we have different signs, that could be like negative 5 plus positive 2. That's different. Now you're adding, but one thing you're adding is negative, one thing is positive. That's different signs. So when we have different signs, we're going to take the sign of the larger number. Okay? When you have different signs, think of it as the larger number has more power. Okay, so that's going to control what the sign is in your final answer. Okay, so let's look at example 3A. Okay, you've got a spot to write down, and you already have the directions written. You just have to copy down the problem. So 3A, it says perform the indicated operation. What operation are we doing there?
Addition.
Yep, we're doing addition. The question is, are we adding things with the same sign or opposite signs?
Same sign.
Same sign. Negative, negative. So combine the numbers. Okay, combine basically means just add them together and keep the sign. Well, we have a negative, we have a negative. Same sign. Keep the sign. So in the final answer, it's going to be a negative. Keeping the sign. Now if you combine 12 and 19, just adding 12 and 19 together, what do you get? 31. Yep. So we combine the numbers and we keep the sign the same. And that's how you add numbers with the same sign. Let's look at this one. B, negative 16 plus 12. What operation are we doing again?
Addition.
We're still doing addition. Are we adding two numbers with the same sign or opposite?
Opposite.
Opposite. So it says take the sign of the larger number. So just think about like which one is further away from 0. That's what I mean here. Negative 16 or positive 12.
Negative 6.
Negative 16 is further away. Okay? Take the sign of the larger one, or the one that's, you know what? I'm even going to make that the way I said it. If you want to leave it as larger, that's fine. But I'm going to say take the sign of the number farthest from 0. Because if you say larger, technically 12 is larger because it's to the
But
right.
isn't 16 farther than 12 on the
Yes,
other
that's
side?
why I wrote it that way. So take the sign of the number that is farthest from 0. So, what's the sign of the number that's further from 0? Positive or negative? Yeah. Negative. So my final answer is going to be a negative.
Oh, okay.
Because the negative 16 is farther from 0. And now, you subtract the two. Right? You subtract them. So think in your head now, okay, I'm going to find the difference between these two numbers, larger minus smaller. So what's the difference between 16 and 12? Yep.
Negative 4.
Yep. Negative 4.
Oh, I didn't get that.
Okay? So when you have different signs, take the sign of the larger number and subtract them.
No.
Okay? When you're adding numbers with opposite signs. Yeah. Yep. Let's go ahead and sign out. Okay, this one. PEMDAS says we just do addition and subtraction in order, left to right. So I'm not going to worry about the plus 4 yet. I'm not going to worry about the plus negative 6 yet. What I am going to worry about is 8 plus negative 2. Just focus on this. It's the only part of the problem we're going to do. What operation am I doing inside that box? What's the operation they want me to do? Well, Lucas?
Addition.
Yeah, addition. Are we adding numbers with the same sign or opposite sign? Yeah.
Opposite sign.
Opposite sign. So we're going to take the sign of the number that's farthest from 0. Which number is farther from 0? 8 or negative 2?
8.
8. What's the sign on the number 8? Positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive. it's going to be the first number in my expression. So do I put a positive like that?
No.
No, if it's the first number, you just leave it blank. Unless it's negative, you put the negative. So we know it's going to be positive. And now just tell me the difference between 8 and 2. That's how you can think about it. How far apart are 8 and 2? Yeah? 6. Okay.
Like the answer? I don't know.
So the difference between 8 and 2 is 6. So we took the sign of the larger number, and then we found the difference between 8 and 2. Just like we did here. Took the sign of the larger number, negative 16, and then found the difference between 16 and 12. Okay? Once you deal with the sign of the larger number, you can kind of forget that the negative's even there, because you've already used it, or in this case, we didn't need it. All right, now we're going to deal with this part. 6 plus 4.
10.
10, right? Easy one. Positive, same sign. Positive plus positive, you get a positive. 10 plus negative 6.
4.
Yeah, 4, right? Adding numbers. Opposite sign. Positive, negative. If I get stuck, I say, okay, take the sign of the number that's farther from 0. 10 is farther away than negative 6 from 0. 10 is positive. It means my final answer is positive. And then ask, okay, what's the difference between 10 and 6? Okay. 4. All right. So that's how I think of adding with same signs and different signs. Okay. Let's see. So on the back, not as much with definitions. It's mostly just quick examples. Evaluate. Can someone remind me what does that mean to do? First thing you have to do when you evaluate.
Example 4 doesn't say that.
Example 4. You can write right next to it then evaluate.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So on your guided notes, the direction isn't there for that one. You can just put evaluate.
This isn't for example 6.
Yeah, we might do another evaluate for example 6 too. But what does evaluate mean? What's the first thing you have to do?
Simplify, I think.
Okay, you're gonna have to simplify once you do this first. Yep. Again, yep. So first thing you have to do is take whatever numbers they give you and then plug them in for the letters. How many of the letters? All of them. How many variables do we have here? How about Jaden? How many variables do I have here? 2. X and Y. Lily, what do they want me to plug in for X? 5. Yep, 5. What do they want me to plug in for Y? How about Julia? Negative 8.
Oh my goodness.
Now, is there anything else that I need to put there?
Parentheses.
The addition sign.
The addition sign, right? We're just going to copy down the addition sign.
And the parentheses.
And you could put parentheses if you wanted. It's always a good idea.
Yes.
5 plus negative 8. So the 5 has what sign?
Positive.
Positive. How about the 8?
Negative.
Negative. Different signs. So we take the sign of the number that's what?
Bigger.
Bigger, or how else did I say?
Farther away from 0.
Farther away from 0. Yep. Which number here is farther from 0?
Negative.
Negative 8. And the sign on that, you guys just said it. Negative.
Negative.
Now, just tell me the difference between 8 and 5.
3.
3. And that's it.
Are you going to be learning about pi
Maybe.
this year?
No, that's more in geometry. I'm sorry. Yeah. You'll do that more in geometry. Okay, so kind of like what we just did, except all you had to do was plug in first. All right, let's try some subtractions. Let's look at this one first. 6 minus negative 9. This is kind of something special. 6 minus the opposite of negative 9. 6 minus negative 9. Okay. what happens there? You're going to minus the opposite of 9. So if you're minusing the opposite of 9, that's really just what?
You're supposed to just put the two together and make it a plus.
Yeah. Whenever you subtract the negative, it just becomes a plus. That's all that becomes. And 6 plus 9 gives me 15. Okay. Let's try this one. In example B, what operations do you have?
Addition and
Yep, I see some addition. What else? Yep, subtraction. And what does PEMDAS say about which one to do first?
In the order from left to right.
In the order that you see them left to right. So since there's no parentheses, no exponents, no multiplication, no division, you're just going to do each operation in order from left to right. So 6 minus 9. Okay. Think about you're taking away more than you have. You have 6.
-3.
Yeah, it's going to be a -3. Right? You've got 6. You're taking away 9 from 6. You're taking away more than you even have, so that makes it a -3. Now, what about the +4? Did we do anything with it?
No.
Nope, let's just copy it down. How about the -1? Nope. Okay, so we did 6 minus 9. Now we're going to focus on that. We're adding with opposite signs. Take the sign of the larger number and then find the difference between 4 and 3. Anyone think they can tell me what you get with -3 plus 4? Yeah, Leilani?
Yep,
1. 1 minus, I still have that -1. And now we subtract them. 1 minus 1 gives me 0. Good. Okay. Any questions on that one? Yeah, just sign out. Okay, let's try another evaluate. Okay, there's really no new directions here. Just give it a try and see what we get. How about Gianna? What's the first thing I have to do when I evaluate?
Oh, okay, we need to write this.
Very first thing we got to do. I think Olivia said simplify last time, and I said one more thing you have to do before you can even simplify it. Not sure? Did I, Gianna? Yeah, Gianna. You're Maya. Yeah.
Wait, I'm so confused.
I'm talking to Gianna.
Okay.
Not sure? No? What do you have to do when you evaluate? Very first thing. Is it Lucas? Yep.
Plug in.
Plug in. So anytime you see evaluate, first thing you got to do, plug in. Lily, can you tell me what that's going to look like when I plug everything in?
-7 plus 8
-7 plus 8.
minus 9. Minus 9.
I like the first two parts. We got to be careful with the last part. You don't have to simplify anything, but how would you write that? You wouldn't put -9. You would put,
Plus.
because it's going to be minus. This says minus z, right? Z is -9. Minus -9. And some people already said what's going to happen. It's going to turn into a plus. Okay? So you know what I would do? I would just do that right away. -7 plus 8 plus 9. Okay. What's the first thing you're going to do there? -7 plus 8 plus 9. Because you got a couple choices. Do you do -7 plus 8 or do you do 8 plus 9? James? Yep, nice job. -7 plus 8. We just go in order from left to right. How about Tristan? What's -7 plus 8?
1.
Yeah. adding numbers with opposite signs, okay? Take the sign of the larger number, positive 8, so the sign of that is positive, and then what's the difference between 8 and 7? 1. So you get a positive 1. Positive 1 plus 9 gives me 10. Yep, good job. Okay, so really simple stuff, but still kind of important because adding and subtracting is in every algebra problem we do all year. Okay, this is not algebra. This is really just arithmetic.
Simple math.
But it's important to know. Yeah. Yep, just sign off. Okay, example 7. I don't think you guys have this written. So it says the temperature rose from -3 to positive 16. They're asking what's the difference in the temperature from -3 to positive 16. What's the change? So when you think change, what operation is that in math? Like if I said, oh, you got a 70 on the last test, you got a 75 on this test, your grade changed. How would I figure out how much it changed by? What operation would I use to do it? Yeah? Subtraction. Yeah, you subtract them, right? You subtract the two numbers, and that'll tell you the temperature change. So let's think back to that example with the test for a second. So let's say last week you got a 70. This week you got a 75. And I want to know how much your grade changed by. You do subtraction, but what would you do? Which one minus which one? Consider this like, maybe this is what you started at when you took the test last week. This is the start point. And now, think of this as like, this is the end. This is where you are now. So maybe you took a test on the first day of school, and you took a test on the last day of school, and you want to know the difference between the two. Which one minus which one? Yeah, Julia.
You subtract the end from the start.
Right, end from the start. 75 minus 70 gives me a change of 5. You don't have to write that down. I'm just showing you the order to do it. What was the temperature when it started at in the morning here? Well, we can assume this is the morning, probably. Yeah?
-3.
It started at -3. Start. It ended at 16. How do we know that? Because it said the temperature went up. -3 to 16. What was the change in the temperature? End minus start. 16 minus what? You gotta be careful. Yep.
-3.
16 minus -3. So anyone think they can simplify that and tell me how much the temperature changed? Yep, Jade?
Well, it would be 16 plus 3 and then
Nice. 16 plus 3. We went over that just a little bit. Yep.
19.
19. Yep. So I just put that little circle there because that means the temperature changed 19 degrees. Okay? You could write out the word degrees too. That's fine. All right, so any questions on with the adding and subtracting? Okay, so last thing on here gets into multiplying and dividing. So there's really 4 different cases you can have. You can have a positive times a negative times a positive, a negative times a negative, or a positive times a positive. So we just have to make sure we know what happens in each of those cases. Yeah.
A negative times a negative is a positive.
Okay, so when we get to that third one, I agree. A negative times a negative, I'm going to put a plus sign right there. Let's go, just because it's easier for me to, when I scroll down, to kind of go in order. What's a positive times a negative? Yep, Lily? Perfect. A positive times a negative is a negative. Yep. How about a negative times a positive?
Negative.
It's the same thing. It's like saying 2 times -5 or saying -5 times 2. It's the same thing. Now, I think James told us a negative times a negative, he said positive. And the simplest one I saved for last, a positive times a positive is a positive. Yep. Some people mix this up with addition. They'll say, oh, a negative plus a negative is a positive. No, a negative plus a negative is a negative. Remember, the sign's the same, you keep the sign. So rules for multiplication and division are a little different. Now, I said it to you as positive times negative is negative. Same thing if it's positive divided by negative. It's still negative. Okay? Negative divided by negative, positive. Same rules for multiplication and division. All right, so let's try an example. All right, anytime I see fractions, if I have to deal with the fraction, then I will. Okay? But if I don't have to deal with the fraction, I try to, wow.
Nice.
I just want to put it back like that. Okay, that's fine. So, 8 divided by 4, is that a fraction?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fraction. But can you simplify it?
Yes.
What is 8 divided by 4? 2. Now, why positive 2? Why not negative 2?
Because of the negative sign.
Both the numbers are plus. It was a plus divided by a plus, so the answer is a plus times 20. And now if we need our calculator, we can use it. I think that one's pretty straightforward. 2 times 20 would give us 40.
Nice job.
Now, why positive? Why not negative? Exactly. Positive times positive is a positive. All right. Now, B, that's one I might use a calculator. But the first thing I should be able to figure out is the sign. It's a negative times a negative. So what's the answer? What's the sign? It's going to be a positive. Right? It's going to be a positive. So on my calculator, bring in my calculator. Oops, brought up 2 of them. Let's type in 6.8, and we can put in negative, times 5, make it negative. This calculator, you can type it like that, some you can't. You've got to put the negative in first. Okay, this one's a little weird. 34. Okay. So negative 6.8 times negative 5 is 34. Let's try a couple with division. Let me put this back like this. Negative 15 divided by negative 5. A lot of times in algebra, you're not going to see it that way. You're probably going to see it this way. Is that different?
No.
No, that's the same thing. There's no difference. Okay. Before you even tell me the answer, can anybody tell me just the sign? Positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive, why?
Because a negative divided by a negative equals a
We
positive.
just said it. Negative divided by a negative gives you a positive. So it's going to be a positive. And we're lucky this time because 15 is a multiple of 5, which means we're going to get a nice answer. What's 15 divided by 5? 3. Yeah, 3. Good job. 3. How about B? Negative 27 divided by 3. Just tell me the sign. Positive or negative?
Negative.
Negative divided by a positive. How do you know the 3 is positive? Shouldn't it have a plus sign like that with it?
No,
No, it doesn't
it
have a
just
negative.
doesn't have any indication.
Yeah. If it doesn't have anything next to it, it's automatically positive. Yep. So it's going to be negative,
9.
negative 9. Good. Now, there's a few special cases, and the special cases come up when you have 0. Okay? And I have them already written for you there. If you take 0 and divide by a number, the answer is always 0. Okay? You can try it on the calculator. 0 divided by 8. 0. 0 divided by negative 9. 0. 0 divided by anything is 0. If you take a number and divide by 0, That's undefined. You can't divide by 0, okay? And the way I remember that is if you take a number and you divide by 0, a number divided by 0 spells no. Can't do it. You can't do a number divided by 0, okay? 0 divided by a number spells on. You're on track. Keep going. You're good. You can do it. Okay, that doesn't really work as well. But number divided by 0, think no.
No.
Can't do it. Okay? Same thing with 0 divided by 0. We can't do that either. Okay? You'll notice on my calculator, it actually gives me different reasons why. If I try to type 5 divided by 0, it says can't divide by 0. If I try to do 0 divided by 0, it says result is undefined. So this calculator says two different things. You guys can just say the same thing for both. Undefined, undefined, that's fine. Okay. There's a reason why the calculator is saying something different, but we don't really have to get into that. Okay, so we're almost done. Any questions on the special cases? All right. So even though I said to put this in your guided notes, this is handy reference material too, because you might get a problem during the year, number divided by 0, and you might not remember it. So this is a good page to go back to and say, oh yeah, he said a number divided by 0 is undefined. Right, so this is a really good sheet.
Reciprocal.
All right, so I kind of already showed you, I was going to ask you guys, but how many people have heard of that word before, reciprocal? Yeah, it's just a fancy way of saying flip. That's all it means, flip. Put the bottom in the top, put the top in the bottom. Flip it. So, reciprocal is something that we talk about when you have a fraction. Okay? So maybe A is 2 and B is 5. You'd have two numbers. But if you take A and B, whatever numbers they are, and flip them, that's called the reciprocal. And you guys already have that on your guided notes. You just have to fill in the word reciprocal. All right, so the last thing, we're almost right at the bottom here, to divide two fractions. It says, keep the top fraction the same and multiply by the reciprocal of the bottom. And when we do our last examples, I'm gonna do one with you. Okay, it's probably the trickiest thing with fractions, trying to divide them.
What time is class end?
In about 14 minutes.
Okay.
See, about 14 minutes. All right? So rather than try to explain that definition more, let's just try to do it with an example. Okay. We have 8/9 divided by -2/3. It says keep the top the same. The first one is the top, right? You could kind of think of it, pretend it was written like this. 8/9 divided by -2/3. Okay, let's get a little more space.
Whoa.
So, what does it say to do to the top? When you divide two fractions?
Keep the top fraction the same.
Keep the top the same.
What's the bottom?
8/9. And, what's the next thing? And,
-2/3.
before that, and,
Change the
nope,
Plug it.
multiply.
and what?
Multiply.
Multiply. So anytime we have division with fractions, we're not actually doing division. We're going to change it to multiplication using this trick. Okay? Keep the top the same, check. Multiply, check. What do I multiply by?
The reciprocal of the bottom.
The reciprocal of the bottom. So,
I know you.
what's the reciprocal of the bottom?
-3. Wait, see, 3/2. Yeah.
Yeah. Reciprocal, you never change the sign. If it's positive, it stays positive. If it's negative, it stays negative. You just switch, bless you, you just flip the numbers. Now some people might say, why didn't you put the negative here? I could. It doesn't matter when you have a fraction where you put the negative. You can put it in the top, you can put it in the bottom. I usually just put it in the top.
Can you put it like next to the
You could also put it,
there?
you could put it next to it if you wanted. I don't really have enough room to squeeze it in here. So we usually will just put it in the top. And now, some people overcomplicate it, like, oh, you gotta get common denominators. No common denominators. You just multiply. Two things you can do. You either multiply straight across and then reduce, or reduce first and then multiply. I would probably reduce first, if you can. Does anybody see, looking at the numbers in the top and the numbers in the bottom, does 2 go into 8 at all? If it does, we can reduce. How many times does 2 go into itself? Once. How many times does 2 go into 8?
4 times.
4 times. Now we can multiply if we want, or there's actually even more reducing we can do. Does 3 go into 9?
Yeah.
How many times does 3 go into itself?
Once.
Once. And how many times does it go into 9?
3.
3. So now all you're left with in the top, and be careful you don't forget this, 4 times negative 1. What's 4 times negative 1?
Negative 4.
Negative 4. 3 times 1.
3.
3. Now, some people might say, well, could you just multiply like 8 times negative 3? Yeah, you could do that, and then multiply 9 times 2, and you'd get a fraction, but you'd have to reduce it. So you always have to reduce. You either do it before, or you, like we did, or you can do it at the very end. Any questions on that one? How many people have done that before, where they multiply by the reciprocal of fractions? Yeah, so it might come up a little bit. A lot of times we're gonna use calculators too, so that's helpful. All right. So second to last one, combine like terms. What does like terms mean again? Yep.
The same.
The same what?
Sign, I think? No, wait.
They don't have to have the same
Variable.
sign,
Variable.
but they gotta have the same
Yes.
variables, okay, and the same exponents. 6CD, negative 9CD. Are those like terms? Yeah. So when you combine like terms, the letters stay the same. It's only the numbers that are going to change. So what are the letters in example A?
C and D.
CD. So when you're done, the answer is going to be something CD. 4CD, 12CD, negative 8CD, but it's going to be something with a C and a D. To figure out what it is, 6 minus 9.
Right.
So think you have $6, you're taking away 9. You're taking away more than you even have.
Negative 3.
Negative 3. You have 6, and you're taking away 9. So whenever you subtract and the second number is bigger, you're taking away more than you have. It's going to be negative.
Is it possible to have negative money?
Yeah, if you have like a loan or something, you might owe the bank money. So like debt. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, how about example B? Can we combine everything there into one thing? No, you can combine some of what's there. Okay, maybe into a couple things. Let's look at that. Is there anything that negative x could be combined with? You got to find something else that looks like it. 6x. How about negative 7? Is there anything else that looks like negative 7?
Positive 4.
Positive 4. All right. Let's start with what I underlined in red. Negative x. Well, how many? Negative, what number is in front of that?
1.
Yep. You can always pretend that there's like a negative 1x. So when you combine negative 1x with 6x, you're still going to have x's. It's just how many? What's negative 1x plus 6x? 5x. Just think of it as like negative 1 plus 6. Okay? It's negative 1 plus 6 is 5, but don't forget what was with it. X's. The 7. Is it positive or negative?
Negative.
It's negative. Remember, the sign to the left always goes with the number. Negative 7. And what are you combining that with? Yeah, James? Positive 4. So think of it like that. You're adding numbers with opposite signs. Take the sign of the number that's farthest away. So what's the answer just going to be, positive or negative?
Negative.
It's going to be negative. And now just find the difference between 7 and 4. 3. Now should I put a letter with it?
No.
No. What we underlined in green, bless you,
Negative.
didn't have letters with it. Okay? What we underlined in red did. So we keep the letter the same. All right, and we're gonna just do example 12a. We're not gonna do B. What property do you have to use on this one?
Distributive.
Exactly, but what are you distributing?
-4.
Yep, I'm gonna distribute the -4. So I usually go like that. How about Joe? What's the first thing I multiply the -4 by?
5x.
Okay, I like it. What should come right after that? Like as I write it, something I have to write right there. Plus. Next thing I'm gonna write?
And then
4 times 7. -4 times 7.
Perfect. -4 times 7. And we're not gonna do that. When you multiply -4 times 5x, is the x still gonna be there in the final answer?
Yes.
Yeah. When you multiply, the x doesn't go away. We just do -4 times 5. How much is that?
-20.
-20. Now, why can't I multiply -20 times x and like write a number? Yeah?
Because x is different than just a normal number.
Yeah, x is a letter. So you can multiply them, but you can't, it's not like doing 2 times 3 and then you can write 6. You can't simplify it. A number times a letter, it just stays as a number times a letter. This is going to be a little different. We have plus -4 times 7. You can put those together. What's -4 times 7? -28. Now, does anybody know a little bit nicer way to write that? You can write -20x plus -28 or -20x
Wait, are we not doing B?
-28.
minus 28.
Are we not doing B?
Yeah, we're not doing B.
Okay.
Okay? So that's it for the guided notes.
Where's the plus
Part 2.
sign now?
Whenever you add a negative, it's the same as subtraction.
La-di-da-di-da.